same feeling after my presentation. So, first of all, my name is Renārs Ronka, and tonight I'm going to talk about agile experience in changing environments and changing teams. It will be more about ways of working and personalities and actually changes in those teams. So the focus will not be that much on the agile theory, nor will it be about planning work or splitting tasks into stories. I won't also talk about managing stakeholders or some cultural differences. What is it like to work with someone from Germany or something like that. I will be focusing on my own experience, what I've seen, what issues I've seen in projects, how we've tackled them together with those teams, and I have tried to be a little bit funny, but sorry if I haven't landed with my jokes. Most of my experience that I will be referring to in this presentation will be from two projects, one from Great Britain, the other from Sweden. And before I continue, I just wanted to say that in all of the projects that I've been part of, the Agile has always been somewhat interpreted. There have been interpretations either by the management or by the team. It's never been close to the best practices, or sometimes it has been, but still not 100%. So moving on, who am I? Yeah.
Have you ever experienced the Agile at the peak?
Maybe a few sprints.
Few sprints?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that I have seen Agile at its best. Usually due to just personalities and teams.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, first of all, about myself, I started off my career as a web developer. Soon enough realized that it's not really for me. I also tried a little bit of project management, but that was not technical enough for me. And I landed in a business analyst / system analyst position, which I've been doing for, I don't know, more than 8 years now, probably. Regarding my studies, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science from University of Latvia and a master in informatics from University in Sweden. I'm also similar to Al Bundy. I'm married and I have 2 kids. And during my free time, I enjoy riding motorcycles, working on them, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, very briefly about the setups of the projects. The British project was interesting with the fact that we had 3 to 4 teams working in one silo, working pretty much the same way, or at least the way of working was agreed between all of the teams most of the time. It was challenging because the priorities changed from management side quite frequent. I would say every couple of weeks or a few months, while in the Swedish project we had just one team focusing on their systems, and well, the Agile there was more dynamic, I would say. We often reviewed our ways of working, and it was more free-flowing, I would say, because when during retro we understood that something's not working, we tried to adjust. And now for the first big part, the way of working. You know the Agile Scrum ceremonies, so I won't go through all of them, but I wanted to point out a few of those because I think they're very crucial for actually getting a bunch of individuals to work as a team. So, for example, the daily stand-up, that is important or has been important in the teams that I've been part of, because very often that was the only time during the day when actually the whole team got together and could talk both about work and non-work related things. So therefore I think it's highly crucial to use that time and to use it not only about work. Sometimes it's good to just complain altogether about the terrible hot weather outside. Because that way you actually find some bonding with your teammates, sort of suffering together. Then another very important thing when it comes to being a team is the retrospective. I will dive into that a bit deeper later in the presentation, but I think it's very crucial to use the time in that sprint ceremony to actually reflect on how you're doing, how you're communicating, and how things are going. For those of you who have not worked with Swedish colleagues or with customers in Sweden, they have this great thing called fika, which is pretty much just getting together, having a coffee, and enjoying the time. They usually do that in their office, at the uni, or any other social place where they spend a lot of time together. But of course, remote work has changed that, and you actually have to plan it. So what we did, we booked a regular time, either on a daily basis or 3 times a week, where we just at one specific time got together, chatted about how things are going, what everyone is going to do in the evening, and so on. And of course, for a good communication and good progress, you have to have ad hoc meetings whenever they're necessary. So, when it comes to ceremonies, you should never underestimate them, because they can bring a lot of value, especially if you plan them way ahead and on a regular basis. Because then people know what and when will happen. For example, your teammates know that every Thursday, 4 p.m., you have to get together to go through the backlog. And they perhaps will arrange their both work and non-work related arrangements so that actually they can be a part of that. Also, in one of the projects, we had an issue where a lot of external teams and stakeholders were often coming in and requesting new features or some sort of development from our team, and having those ceremonies pre-booked allowed us to have an additional reason to say no to them. For example, we had started a sprint on Monday, and someone came in on Tuesday and said, okay, this is something we need, and we need it quick. But we said, well, sorry, we have a refinement booked, and that's when we can actually take it. Because the team is working on what they have signed up for this sprint. And then, usually in projects we have people who are, I would say, very popular or rock stars, because they're always required in some sort of meeting, and they're usually booked from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and sometimes even overbooked. People like tech leads, architects, and we've had issues with having them in our meetings when they have to make a decision because no one in the team has the authority to do that. So if you pre-plan your ceremonies way ahead and invite those people to them, you can always say, well, there's nothing that important, you can skip this one. However, if you suddenly will need them in the meeting, then you may end up in a situation where they simply cannot attend. So, moving on, when it comes to interactions both inside and outside the team, we had this issue where the team was responsible for few systems in the production. So we had some sort of incident management through a ticketing system, which was usually taken care of one of the developers as on rotational basis. However, there were still questions coming in, whether technical or business related, and it was just so disruptive to the team. Because what we found out as we talked between ourselves, that some external teams came to developers in our team and asked the same question to multiple developers, hoping that they will actually get a different answer or will get the answer quicker. Which, not to mention, is very difficult for our team to actually deliver something that they promised for the sprint. So our solution was actually to introduce single point of contact, or SPOC. And what we did, we had actually two of them. One was for technical questions and technical support. There, all the questions went to the tech lead of the team. And we had a common mailbox for both business analysts in the team who handled questions like business functionality or business logic. So, yeah, my advice would be do not allow your team to be disturbed. Otherwise, they cannot deliver on what they've promised. Then when it comes to interaction inside the team, things have changed with remote work. And I mean, people are very different. Some really like it because then they're not being disturbed and they can focus on their work and just get things done. While others have problems with this, and they might tend to feel left out. So there was an example in one of the teams in projects where this colleague described the situation in a very emotional way, and it was said that, well, I wrote a question in the team chat, and I just needed some answer, but no one replied. And at that point, it's not even about the answer to the question, but about the feeling of being left out. So even if you don't know the answer to the question, don't leave your teammates hanging. Just say that, okay, I've heard your question, but I don't know. Maybe we can solve it together or find someone who knows the answer. So definitely respond and be active in your communication. Then, what can we do if people don't want to talk? Well, my answer would be make them, but in a subtle way. What I've experienced is that it's great if you can have an actual team meetup.
Actually, I have experienced very often that nobody don't want to answer to the question. Like usually I have a lot of questions, and usually I do not get responded. Like,
and how do you deal with that?
Wait, I have to think about it. I do not felt like left alone or left aside, but I'm working mainly in manufacturing field, and basically if I'm asking the question, actually it's very important. And when I'm asking the question and nobody wants to answer it, like even the company's owner or CEOs, then I don't know how they are doing the business, how they want to achieve something more, like about some quality stuff, for example, yeah. So what to do then? Like I just cannot push it all the time.
Yeah. Honestly, that would probably be my answer. Just keep pushing and keep going to people directly.
Yeah.
Because also in a situation where you raise a question in the team chat, if no one is responding, what I personally tend to do is just start asking teammates directly. Because from my experience, if you ask someone directly, then they feel more obliged to actually reply. Even if they don't know, they will tell you that. Because when you're in a team chat, then if everyone is responsible, no one is responsible.
And what do you think about that? That maybe they are feeling like incompetent in the field, or scared to give me the wrong answer, kind of wrong, because if I ask a question, it's a discussion.
It's difficult for me to answer on behalf of others.
Okay.
It could be one of the reasons. That's for sure. Another reason, what we discussed, if touching upon this a little bit more, what was sort of the reason from other teammates, at least some of them, were that one was I don't know the answer, and the other was I was just working and not paying attention to what happens in the team chat.
Like I think it's like more than
And
maybe around 70%. I feel like that is like arrogance from them. I think. I don't know. I'm just feeling like that about some questions. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but I get it.
Did I somewhat answer your question though?
Yeah, at least you tried. That's the point of this discussion, to solve something.
Okay. Can we move on?
Yeah, sure.
So what I want to say is that I've seen that it's very good to have a meeting in person if you can get the actual team together in one place and give them a week just to get things going. However, I've noticed that it's not the best practice to do it right when everyone is sort of starting the project, because then you barely know the names of your teammates. What worked better for us, or in some of the projects, were a situation where you have worked for a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two, and then you get that event organized. Because then when you meet in real life, then you know the persons at least by their names, and then you can actually start interacting with them. And I don't know, spend the day in the office and in the evening go grab a beer together. Another thing that we tend to do is play games either before or after the daily stand-up or during the fika that I mentioned earlier. What we've done is playing Hangman, Scribble, and quizzes. But regarding quizzes, or my personal favorite is if you have the time for the team, then do a quiz within your team. Meaning that every day someone is the designated author of a quiz. And what we did with the British project was to have a quiz about yourself, or the country of origin, or the city that you're coming from, or your hobbies. And that way you get to know the person a lot better. For example, one of the developers actually shared that throughout that quiz that their favorite food is lasagna, and they used to have a nickname Garfield. And as a result, you know what nickname he has. When it comes to working together, of course, extreme programming or pair programming, that works well to understand just how people communicate with each other. And last but not least, it's very important to also lead the sprint ceremonies. I've been in a situation where we don't have a Scrum Master for a period of time, and then we have tried initially to just somehow manage it all together. But as I said before, if everyone's responsible, nobody really is. So then you can designate it to someone in the team, or you can do it on a routine basis. And if you do it like that, on a routine basis, then there's a potential improvement also for the whole team. Because over time, for me, it seems that people tend to, not pay attention to some of the meetings. For example, if it's a daily stand-up, they just talk about what they're doing and that's it. And especially if cameras are not on, you don't really know if they're paying attention, or is there a bad connection or something, or why do you have to repeat the same question to that person. And if you give them the chance to lead a meeting, they actually understand what's it like if others don't listen, and sometimes this sort of attitude improves. Then what about changes in teams? We know that business is very dynamic and people come and go. And in the British project, we had a situation where part of the team was sent to a different project, and instead we had a couple of newcomers joining. But the thing is, when you have newcomers straight from uni or very little experience, it's a lot easier to get them on board with your way of working. If you have an existing team, they will accept your rules a lot easier. However, the newcomers that we got were experienced guys, and with their own understanding of how things should be done, which we knew will be, or had a very high risk of being a challenge for the remaining team. So what we did was we actually actively planned and did onboarding for those newcomers. What we did, we explained what our project is about, what we're striving for, and also how we're working and why is it that way. Because usually ways of working are set due to some reasons. It's not just because someone wanted it like that. So we did that, and we actually managed to do that before they joined, like 1 or 2 weeks before they became an official part of the team. It helped, but it didn't solve the disruption that we had in the team once they joined. But over time, we sort of aligned with each other, and were able to work productively together. And one more thing, this is probably more to management, but be open about changes when it comes to personnel. Multiple times I've seen that managers or companies, organizations don't want to share that someone is going to leave. And that's, in my opinion, it's ridiculous, it's unacceptable, because if you're not sharing that someone is leaving, especially if someone experienced is leaving, you're robbing your team from potential knowledge transfer, you're disrupting the ecosystem in the team, and what was the third thing? Well, apparently something very important. Sorry about that. So yeah, be open about it, and my advice to everyone would be that if your management doesn't allow you to share this information, share it at least with your direct coworker. If you are 2 backend developers, share it with that person, or if you're 2 BAs, share with the other BA, because you will need to transfer that knowledge. And if someone says, oh, just write it down in Wiki, come on, you cannot do that. You cannot transfer knowledge just through writing it down. So yeah, just a little reminder, allow your teams to work. I've seen this a couple of times where both priorities change too often, which pretty much kills the wish to work efficiently. Because why to bother and give your very best if you know that you won't be able to deliver it until the end, and in a few weeks you'll have to work on something new anyway. And one solution doesn't fit all, because as with the project in Britain, when we had 3 teams and 1 Scrum Master, an additional team and a new Scrum Master was added, it was very difficult to align the ways of working between all 4 teams. So don't try to push the same way of working on everyone. Of course, some guidelines might be needed, but people will find a way how to go around that anyway. So now the roles in Agile Scrum. You know, these are pretty much the standard roles: APO, Scrum Master, developers, BAs, and quality assurers. I want to focus on the top 3, because I think they have the biggest impact when it comes to forging a bunch of individuals into a team. First of all, the Agile Product owners. Well, they have an ownership, or should have an ownership over a product. It's not just the system, it's also everything around it and the business processes around it. They need to have authority to decide on what has to be done and in which direction are we going as a team, to, in the end, to have actual value to the end user, whether it's a new button, new feature, or anything. But we had an interesting experience in one of the teams in the British project, where we had APOs coming in as consultants. They had no understanding of the organization, and they didn't have the official authority to make decisions, which in the end actually prevented the team from delivering some proper value. And if we move on to the business analyst part, we were, I think, 4 BAs then, and the conclusion that one of the BAs stated in a very simple way was that we got more done when APOs were not around. Because what we could do, we could directly talk to the team about what has to be done, and we could directly go to the stakeholders and ask, well, what do you need, and when do you need it? Which was disrupted by the APOs, because there was a middleman who was not allowed to decide on anything, which just made things a lot worse. And of course, one of the most important characters in the Scrum team is the Scrum Master. First of all, he or she has to be part of the team, because I've had a few projects where Scrum Master was just not really a random guy, but from outside the team, who came in, managed all the ceremonies, asked if we're doing all right, do we need any help, and off he went to another project. But Scrum Master should actually be part of the team to protect them from additional work and to make sure that they're only committing to what they can do and what they can deliver in a sprint. Of course, they have to be a moderator in those sprint ceremonies and make sure that things are progressing and people are actually interacting with each other. And they have to be open with stakeholders and other teams around to have the context in which the team is working. And they have to be, as I said, guardian for the team, so that some other stakeholder or team doesn't come in and say that, okay, we need this by tomorrow, can you deliver, or is it okay with you? Then Scrum Master is the one who says, no, we committed to this amount of work and this is what we're delivering. But of course there has to be some flexibility, because we had an example where we had a really good Scrum Master. He stood up for the team, protected the team's interests when it came to discussions with stakeholders and so on. But he was inflexible within the team. One specific example that I remember is we had a discussion whether bugs should be story pointed or not. And the whole team, except for the Scrum Master, was saying, we want to point these things because they take time. There's a lot of heritage code that we need to fix, and sort of they're still bugs, but they take time and they are complex. And he just stubbornly said that no, bugs can't be story pointed, and that's the end of it. So there has to be some flexibility. What to do in cases when you don't have enough people in the team? Can you have multiple hats? Yes, but you need to keep in mind that these roles are separated for a reason. And an APO can be a Scrum Master, but an APO's goal is to get as much value as soon as possible, while Scrum Master is there to protect the team and make sure that they don't burn out. Can a developer be a business analyst? Yeah, sure. Especially the more experienced, the better they will be. But what I've seen is when developers start talking about requirements with some customer directly, we have no reference of that in Jira. And that's an issue when you get to the sprint planning and someone says, oh yeah, wait, we actually have to do this. I promised that we'll do that. And okay, so where's the ticket? Sorry, and that's it. Not to sort of step on anyone's shoes, just experience of my own. Can BAs be quality assurers? Yeah, sort of, if they're trained well enough. Of course, you can expect to do acceptance testing as a BA, but don't expect BAs to do some performance tests or something similar. So just be aware of who's doing what. And not everyone is fit for a specific role. Because a Scrum Master, they have to have openness and some toughness in them. BAs have to be open and be able to communicate openly with people. So be aware of the characters that people have before actually assigning some an extra hat to them. So key takeaways. Have a team contract, agree on the way you're working. Please talk with each other, and not just about work, but also about how are you doing, because when someone is sitting at home all alone, then of course those who are parents, those will be really happy, yeah, I'm finally home alone. But people who live by themselves all the time, they might actually need that interaction, and that might be one of the few times in the day when they actually can sort of joke around with someone.
Like for example, like Americans, they are just walking beside you and how are you doing, and just walk away, and he don't want to listen. Yeah, I have worked in America, so I know.
Talk and listen.
I also talked about this issue with them, and they what? You know.
Yeah, that's a cultural difference. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and remember to prepare for changes, not just changes in priorities or what has to be developed, but also changes in the teams. Remember what is your primary role, because if you ever take an additional hat on, then that will take some time. And you have to be aware of it, and also you have to make sure that others in the team are aware of it. Of course, plan around people. For example, people leaving or coming, there has to be some knowledge transfer, whether it's a newcomer and they have to be onboarded, or someone leaving and you have to extract the knowledge that they have. And regarding vacations, people definitely need vacations, no doubt about it. But what I like to do is to have some sort of a chat or an email to my colleagues, just to let them know what I was working on and what questions they might get while I'm away. And the same when I come back, just to catch up, to understand what's happening. Right. I almost made it. Any questions? Yep.
You've mentioned rock stars in the beginning.
Yep.
Which are booked, overbooked, etc. So the question is, isn't Agile actually the answer to this organizational problem when there are some people who cannot, or for some reason are not able to delegate their responsibilities? So isn't that kind of a sign that we're using Agile the wrong way? So that's a question, right?
And it's a valid one. I honestly don't know the answer, because as I said, in all of the projects that I've been part of, it's always been some sort of interpretation. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, more times than not, management uses Agile as a buzzword, and they don't really restructure the organization so that every team could be fully Agile, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And then we end up in a situation where, yeah, you have a team who's ready to do something, but they are dependent on someone else's decision making. I mean, if the whole organization would sort of switch to this way of working, hopefully that would solve this.
Anything in Agile methodology that could help team to solve this problem for a specific team? I mean, not mutating, changing entire organization.
Are you asking if there is such a?
Yes.
I think this SAFE, the short abbreviation SAFE, is one that is striving for that. I don't remember the exact full name of it, but yeah, I think that is one of those. There probably are more. Yeah.
A question about retrospectives.
Yeah.
Usually, how it goes is after the sprint is finished, then you talk about like what's good, what's bad, what can be done better, and then you go and start next sprint. And at least how it was in the previous company, that yeah, we invested a lot of time talking about these retrospectives, like going, yeah, we should have done this better and that, and then after some time, kind of like forget it. It just goes into, I don't know, it just goes away, and then repeat the same mistakes again. Maybe you can share, from your personal experience within the team, how do you keep yourself accountable so that you ensure that you do not make the same mistakes again?
Very good question. What we do is we decide on a specific action, what has to be done to actually improve the situation, and we try to delegate it to someone specific in the team, so that they will have this responsibility until the next sprint to try to improve the situation. However, we've had the same problem that you did, described just now. In the Swedish project, it was, I think, okay, I will mix up years, so I won't mention the exact years, but basically, in one summer, we had some issues that we talked through, we improved, but about spring next year, we started having the same issue, and we had to just have the same discussion once again. And I think it's just habits of people and characters, how they're doing. So it might be that you cannot solve this problem that you have permanently, but once you do it and it actually is improved, you can try to do it once again if you have seen it reoccurring. So short answer, specific action point and delegate it to someone, and then follow up in the next retro. Yeah?
So one maybe a personal question to you. So how do you compare working like last things you mentioned were hybrid and remote teams, like working remotely, working in office, like what's your take on that?
I personally prefer working from home, but what I experienced with the remote work with the British project, whichever it is, you need to make sure the whole team does it. Because I don't know about you, but that's one of my worst experiences when a bunch of people are calling in to like a Teams chat, and another group are sitting in an office room all together. The communication between both is terrible. So whichever the team prefers, you just have to do it as a team. Right, yeah?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for an excellent presentation. I think sharing the real-world experience is actually invaluable because a lot of those Agile talks are somewhat hypothetical, I would say. But my question would be about this. Imagine an ideal world. So the team has done some backlog grooming. They know they have, like, for example, 10 tasks. They have 5 specialists, and they have the sprint planning meeting. And they need to distribute these tasks among the people, ensuring like fair workload, etc. So how would you imagine this sprint planning meeting go like, what is happening there?
Even though I said this is not going to be about, about what you just asked, in my personal view, it would be personal initiative. When you have a task on the board, everyone should be already aware of it through the backlog refinement that you had before the planning some time ago. And then if you see that on the board as the whole team, someone who sees that they can do it or they want to do it, that they stand up and say, okay, I want this. Because I personally hate delegating things to others because you never know if the person will like that task or not. So I think it's better if you see the whole list from what you can choose, and then just select the ones that you like. If, of course, people want the same thing, it becomes more complex. But I would say, yeah, personal initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
About those both teams in England and Sweden, both you were doing Scrum, right?
Yes.
Or at no point you ever considered doing Kanban. Well, at least in our team, we had it that we were trying to implement Scrum, and it kind of turned into like a Schrodinger's cat, that it is and it is not a Scrum, and became so chaotic that in the end we just were, screw this, we go Kanban. And maybe you can share from your personal experience, how did you ensure that you keep on the Scrum? Was it just due to the nature of the project itself, or was it due to marvelous execution of Scrum Master?
First and foremost, it comes down to, at least from what I've seen, it comes down to the Scrum Master, or the person actually deciding on the way how they want to work with the team. And then, if the team agrees, then of course you can switch to either Scrum or Kanban. But we had that discussion in the Swedish project, whether we should switch, because we had at that point systems that were in production. They had to be maintained, and sort of it was clear it's somewhat never-ending story. But I think at that point we decided not to do it and just to focus on development instead. It felt like it's going to be too much of a hustle, maybe. Honestly, there's no simple answer why not. Probably if someone who was really pro Kanban would have come into the team, they could have sort of convinced everyone else that no, this is a better way. I haven't had proper experience with Kanban, to be honest. Usually, all the projects that I've been part of usually goes with Scrum. I don't know why is that, but that's just statistics of my personal experience. Yeah.
So, in the beginning, you mentioned that like from your experience, the most typical reason why an agile fails, or it's not 100, it's like personalities in the team. So, how you deal with this, or this is outside of the agile scope in general? So,
no, I don't think you can take it out of the equation. But just a side note, it's also the organizational structure and the management or management's approach to agile. Because sometimes they say that, okay, we're switching to agile, or at least a few years ago it was like that. But actually nothing happens, and they just keep going as they work. But when it comes to characters, you need to find an individual approach. My challenge is to work with people who are very, how to put it mildly, hardcore. So they think that they know everything, and things have to be run the way they want. And you just need to find some individual approach. First of all, touch points that you can agree upon, and then you can try to convince them or get them into a discussion at least. As you saw in one of those examples, we had a Scrum Master who was not flexible at all. And in that case, you either leave things as they are, and sort of one side will succeed, sort of give up, or you can escalate the issue. And then you need to evaluate what's more important. Do you want to have it the way you want it, or you want to sort of have peace?
but what usually works, or maybe you have some tips, or maybe you have some hunter story, how you dealt with some hardcore guy.
Talk to them one-on-one. Whenever you have a meeting in a wider audience or with the team, talk with the person one-on-one. Whether it's a hardcore person or just someone with a very high authority in the organization, you have to talk to them directly and explain what is it that you want to achieve. Because when you get into the group, you want them to be on your side already, not to start having discussions. If you can convince them one-on-one about what you want to do and that it's right, it's like half of the victory already. If you can't, try to find someone else who can do that. Because personal relationships, they're extremely important when it comes to dealing with people. And as we know, at least for now, teams consist of people, not ChatGPT. So, thanks. Sorry, but that's
No, of course.
best I can give you.
There is no like silver bullet or golden ticket or something.
Exactly.
Just maybe just your experience and so on.
Yeah. So then it's going eye for an eye and sort of getting on board with them before an actual like public discussion.
Bring a gun to a knife fight.
You know,
You make those guys your gun.
yeah, that's a good idea. But don't challenge someone who's really hardcore, because they tend not to break, but instead make more problems for you. Make friends with people who can be guns for you. I'm not advocating violence or anything. Okay.
That part will put some